Today it is finally time for my long-term review of the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7i Pro. I've been using this laptop for about 4 months as my main driver at work, and now during the past month and a half I've even used it as my main driver for all my different activities, even video editing and gaming. I'm W2Best, I make in-depth gear reviews and tutorials, and if you like this kind of video after watching it, I would be super happy if you want to put a like on the video, and if you want to communicate with me, you can do so either in the comment section below or on Instagram, where I'm also at W2Best. I really always want to make one of these long-term reviews when I've been working and using a machine for a longer time, because I feel like those full reviews that you see me do after 2 weeks and other reviewers do after a few weeks, they always lack the long-term use experience to be able to know what are those quirks that you can't really see when you just use the laptop quite intensely but only for a few days and take benchmarks and stuff like that. I paid roughly 1150 euros including the sales tax in Sweden, which is about 25%. And this is my most expensive unit of all the ones I have tried on this channel. And I really felt like it had to live up to its price of significantly above that €1,000 price point where I would normally buy devices at. The specification I have is the i5-1135G7. It does not have a discrete GPU, so there's only the XE graphics in this guy. But it has 16GB of RAM running in dual channel and also low power DDR4X with 4266 MHz clock rate. So this means that the RAM is working very well together with those XE graphics. Actually quite a bit better compared to the other devices I've used with XE graphics that only had 3200 MHz. I also have a 512GB SSD, which is PCIe Gen 3 in this guy. It is fast, but it's not the fastest. There is a 90Hz panel in this guy that is 2.8K resolution, and it is a gorgeous display. It is 16:10 in aspect ratio, and the screen is really one of the things in this laptop that I think makes it so good. The use cases I've had for this laptop has been pretty mixed. Most of the time I've used it in my office, and there I use it with a one cable setup plugged into my Dell monitor via USB-C, and then I daisy chain to a second monitor via DisplayPort. So that is a pretty well working one cable setup that is super well working with this dual Thunderbolt port setup that this laptop comes with. I don't need that many other peripherals in the office, but if I need to plug something in, I do have on the other side there the USB-A port as well as the 3.5mm headphone jack. Those things are not the best port setup ever, but it is a fairly good port setup for at least my office use, I have to say. My second use case is that I use it when I go to Stockholm, where I also have had a house during this past few months. When I work from there, I normally use this laptop together with my Ofia tri-screen monitor. The Ofia needs those two USB-C ports with DisplayPort out and power out to even be able to run them. Well, you could do it via HDMI and then externally power them, but it's really inconvenient. So I've loved having this port setup with two fully featured Thunderbolt ports for that use case that I have there. I've been using it quite a bit in cafes, and the only downside I see to using it in cafes is that the battery life is not perfect. It has a very power draining screen, and some people state this at very good battery life, but unfortunately I haven't been able to see that during the whole time that I've tested it. I used it quite a bit on train rides as well, going between Stockholm and Gothenburg, and there I would have power to plug into, and this kind of 14-inch 16:10 aspect ratio laptop I think is the perfect kind of laptop to use on a train or flight, because you get enough screen real estate in this guy to be able to work comfortably with only this screen available. So that's something I value a lot, because I do travel a lot, even if it has been a lot less now during the pandemic. And then I've of course used it a bit when I've been at home just to watch video clips or watch movies and things like this, which is something it also works excellent for. So to summarize what I have done with the laptop, I've been working on it, I've been gaming on it a little bit, video editing on it a little bit, and I've been consuming content on it quite a bit. My summary that I will say from using this for all of those different use cases that I mentioned for the past 4 months is that this guy is a really amazing laptop package. You get so much for your money, and it's just a very well working device, I think. The main pros and why I think this is such a good machine: the combo of a bigger trackpad and a very nice Lenovo keyboard. The screen is just amazing. For every single thing I've done with it, from gaming with a 90 Hz refresh rate, to editing video with a great resolution, to doing office work with a 16:10 aspect ratio, this is the best screen I've been using so far. And then I came from the MateBook 14, which has this 3:2 aspect ratio screen that is also gorgeous, but I still find this guy with its 90 Hz to be slightly better, because it truly trumps the MateBook 14 when it comes to gaming. The MateBook 14 was not a gaming machine at all because of the screen. This guy, you can definitely game on it, and it works really well. At idle or low usage, this guy is making no noise whatsoever. When you pick up to like a medium use, it's making no noise whatsoever. When you touch the keyboard area, or even up here, the hottest area, at some kind of relatively intense use, like playing some videos and having a multiple array of tabs open in Chrome, you can't feel any kind of heat from it, which is something I really value. It is just really able to cool itself a lot, and I know it doesn't have the most powerful CPU, but I've been trying other machines that have similar CPUs, and they have some issues to cool themselves when they are in a slim chassis like this actually is. When you come up to a high level of use, like heavy video editing or heavy gaming, it's still not making a lot of noise, and it's still not getting very warm. I've never had this unit get hot to the touch, and I've never been disturbed by the fan noise that is coming from it. And that is pretty unique for any machine that I have tested here on this channel. I was a bit unsure at first how well the i5-1135G7 in this chassis would perform when it comes to heavier activities, like video editing or gaming. But I have to say that this has been really working well. And both actually gaming, where I would use it, for example, to play Overwatch, use it in native resolution, and still be able to go, well, down of course a bit in quality of graphics. So I would be at low with maybe 70% render scale or something like this. But then I would still be able to get above a 90 FPS rate. So then I would be able to get something out of this 90 Hz screen. And I'm completely fine playing Overwatch on low settings with a little bit lower render scale. So that has been a great experience. I've also played some other more RPG games that are a little bit less fast-paced, and I really enjoy the screen for this as well. It's just a well-working machine. And as I mentioned before, the CPU with the XE graphics, together with the high-speed RAM that is in it, seems to really be able to deliver when it comes to gaming performance. And if you don't think that it's enough, you plug this guy into an eGPU, and then you have a super solid machine to play any kind of game with a 90 Hz screen. It is slightly too small, I think, for being able to play like an FPS game properly, but then you just connect it to an external monitor, either straight from this guy or from your eGPU. I was also a bit unsure about how this thing would do when it comes to video editing. But I have been editing quite a few videos on it lately, and even some longer ones that I published here on the channel, and it really performs quite well. The CPU seems to deal pretty good with my Full HD footage, even when I have like a 30-minute timeline. And the only thing that disturbs me is of course that there's no SD card reader. So what I have to do instead is to plug my camera via micro USB into this USB-A port, and then transfer the footage, and then start editing. This is of course a bit of a slower process, but I do carry a micro USB cable almost all of the time, so I can't complain too much of it. And when I've only had this laptop at hand and still wanted to shoot videos, it has really performed well for me with DaVinci Resolve. The most obvious con, I would say, is the battery life. And this is one of the things that I think could break this device for you. If you really want a super good battery life, this is probably not your dream device. I'm usually at around 5 or 6 hours of battery life if I turn down the brightness slightly and put the screen to 60 Hz. but I want to run the screen at 90 Hz most of the time, and I want to run it at a higher brightness level, so it usually won't give me those 5-6 hours, it will be quite a bit less than that. Since I used the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7 for such a long time, that has 10 plus hours of battery life, it is quite annoying to use this one when you want to be on the go. So sometimes when I want to be outside for a long time and don't know if I will have access to power, I will still pick my Lenovo Yoga Slim 7 to know that I still have a decent machine, but I also have really good battery life. The second very obvious thing with this guy is that the port setup is not perfect for everyone. You don't have an HDMI port, which is annoying in some cases when it comes to, for example, going to a client and doing a presentation, and then they don't have USB-C ports to plug into a projector, and you need HDMI. Then you either need a dongle, or there needs to be some kind of other wireless solution or something like this. This is something that has disturbed me a little bit the last few weeks when it starts to be possible to go and see clients in person again. And second of all, on the port side of things, there's no SD card reader, which is something that could disturb some people. It just makes the process of importing footage a little bit less fluid with this machine. The last thing I want to mention as a con is the price. And this thing being around 1150 euros, you can really either choose this or an M1 MacBook Air and be at the exact same price level. And the M1 MacBook Air has some really good things to it, both when it comes to performance, when it comes to the keyboard, the trackpad, the speakers, the screen. It's a little bit less professional looking, I think, because it doesn't have as slim bezels. That is a 13.3 inch 16 by 10 aspect ratio, and this guy is a 14 inch 16 by 10 aspect ratio. MacBook Air M1, I would say, is one of the main competitors, and the main reason why I haven't got one and why I wouldn't get one because of the use cases I have is because it doesn't have two Thunderbolt ports that could run monitor out. It is limited to run one external monitor if you don't use it with DisplayLink or some alternative solution like that, which I think is just too much of a hassle, so I don't want to do it. The last week, a little bit of dancing and DJing, which is one of my main interests, was starting to come back to Sweden. So I was using this machine for the first time for DJing, and I actually found it quite annoying to use for DJing, because the USB-A port would act up together with my sound card. The 3.5mm headphone jack would also act up a little bit. Even though I was doing all the settings in Windows correctly, I couldn't really trust this machine for DJing. And that is one of my main use cases usually. So being a weaker machine when it comes to DJing is also something that could make me want to replace this machine in the future and use something else. Before, I've used my Dell Inspiron 15 7000, and this has worked flawless all the time with all my different sound equipment and with a 3.5mm headphone jack working flawlessly to just switch between one pair of headphones and another, for example. So what are the alternatives to this guy? Because there must be a few alternatives that could really do an as good job, right? I think the MacBook Air M1 and MacBook Pro M1 are pretty similar in price level, pretty similar in format with the 16 by 10 aspect ratio screen, and they are also gorgeous machines that do their thing really well. I came from using the Huawei MateBook 14 over to this device, and I prefer this guy over the MateBook 14, but MateBook 14 is still an impressive device with great performance, a great display, and a great keyboard and trackpad combo. So this is also a bit cheaper than the Yoga Slim 7i Pro, so you can definitely check out the MateBook 14 as an alternative to this guy. Last but not least, Lenovo are right now starting to release their IdeaPad 5 Pro, which is gonna be a similar form factor as this guy. It has been delayed and delayed and delayed, the same way the Yoga Slim 7i Pro was delayed and delayed and delayed, but the IdeaPad 5 Pro is gonna come out hopefully sometime during October. At least that's the way it is here in Scandinavia. And it will come with a similar screen that is spec'd at 90 Hz, some of them even spec'd at 120 Hz. High resolution screen, 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It will come with the same keyboard and trackpad combo, but with a bit of a better port setup for some users. It will have a full-size SD card reader, it will have two USB-A ports, together with an HDMI port. And that makes it a bit of a more full-on machine, I think. There is one issue for me personally, and that's that it has only got one fully functional USB-C port. The other one is only used for charging and data transfer. This is something that I find really disturbing, and I don't understand why they would skimp down on one of the USB-C ports. I really hope to be able to get one of these devices to compare it to this guy and see if it could actually replace this as my main work, video editing and gaming laptop when I'm out on the go or in my office. But until that happens, this is still the strongest machine for me, the Lenovo Yoga Slim 7i Pro, my current favorite laptop after using it for 4 months straight. I'm W2Best, I make in-depth gear reviews and tutorials, and if you like this video, I would be super happy if you want to subscribe to this channel. I try to release content on a weekly or a little bit less than weekly basis, and try to go as in-depth as possible on different tech subjects. I hope to see you in the next video, and have a really nice day. Bye bye!